You know, modern construction, it's just this incredible symphony of complexity. We're talking about thousands of people, millions of different parts, and a complete tidal wave of digital information. Just keeping it all straight is one of the biggest challenges in the entire industry. So, what if there was a way, a kind of universal rule book designed to tame all that chaos? Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today. It's called ISO19650.
Okay, so let's just stop and think about this for a second. Seriously, how do you make sure that the architect in London, the engineer over in New York, and the fabricator in Shanghai are all working from the exact same plan at the exact same time? Because, just one wrong file, one little missed update, and bam, you've got a multi-million-dollar problem on your hands. And that is the core question that this standard, ISO 19650, was built to solve.
All right, so before we can really appreciate the solution, we've got to get our heads around the problem. And really, the problem comes down to one word: chaos. We're talking about pure information chaos.
Yeah, this image right here, it just perfectly sums up what a major project feels like, doesn't it? Just try to imagine that each of these looping paths is a different stream of data. You've got info flowing from designers to contractors, from suppliers over to regulators. Every single one of those lines is a piece of information that has to be spot on, up to date, and super clear. And when those loops get tangled, well, that's when you get friction, mistakes, and those really, really expensive delays.
And check out this quote. It's pulled right from the introduction to the standard itself, and it really gets to the heart of the cost. Uncoordinated efforts is kind of a polite way of saying nobody's on the same page, right? And that leads to tons of wasted resources. This isn't just about being a little inefficient. We're talking about burning through a fortune in time and money, all to fix mistakes that honestly shouldn't have happened in the first place.
Okay, so how do we fix this mess? It's actually pretty simple in concept. We introduce a rule book, a shared set of principles that literally everyone agrees to follow for managing all that information. And the foundation for this whole new way of working is something called Building Information Modeling, or BIM. Now, this is not just about making some cool-looking 3D models. It's way deeper than that. It's about embedding smart, structured data right into the model. So, for example, a digital wall isn't just a rectangle. It actually knows what it's made of, what its fire rating is, even who the supplier is. But here's the catch. Having all that amazing data is totally useless if nobody can agree on how to manage it.
And that, right there, is exactly what ISO 19650 is for. It is the international standard that lays out the whole process. And listen to this key phrase: entire life cycle. This is so important. We're not just talking about a plan for the construction phase that you just file away and forget. No, this is a framework for creating a digital blueprint that literally lives with the asset, whether it's a building, a bridge, a railway, from the very first sketch all the way to the day it's demolished. Okay. Here is probably the best way to think about this. It's a great analogy. If BIM is the language that everyone on the project is speaking, then ISO 19650, that's the grammar. It gives you the rules for how to name your files, how to share information, how to approve designs. It's what makes sure that when one person says something, everybody else understands it in precisely the same way. No ambiguity.
All right, so to speak this new language, we obviously need to know some of the vocabulary. The standard does introduce a few specific terms, but trust me, they're a lot simpler than they sound. Let's break them down.
So yeah, the standard uses some pretty formal-sounding terms, but this little table here shows you what they really mean. The appointing party, that's just the client, the person or company paying for the whole thing. The appointed party, that's the supplier they hire to do the work. And the appointment, well, that's just the contract that binds them together. See? Not so scary, right? Once you translate it, the jargon makes perfect sense.
So let's look at how these roles actually fit together on a real project. It all starts with the client, the appointing party. They kick things off by defining exactly what information they need to make their decisions. Then the main supplier, the lead appointed party, steps in and puts together a delivery team to actually produce all that info. And that team, it could be a mix of architects, engineers, all kinds of specialists, all working together. The whole system is just built on this really clear, collaborative flow of information from one party to the next.
Okay, so you've got all these different teams collaborating. Where does all this information actually live? I mean, it can't just be scattered across 1,000 different email inboxes, right? That's the old way. No, it has to be in one central place, like a digital project room for everyone. And this is the absolute heart of the entire ISO 19650 process. It's called the Common Data Environment, or CDE. The easiest way to think of it is as the ultimate project server. It is the single source of truth. So,
Say goodbye to hunting through endless email chains trying to find the latest version of a drawing. With a CDE, everything is in one spot. It's accessible to everyone who needs it, and it has a perfect history of who changed what and when they did it.
Now, information doesn't just get, dumped into the CDE willy-nilly. Oh no, it moves through a very specific, very controlled workflow. So first, you have the work in progress area. This is where each team works on their own stuff, privately. Then, when a design is ready for others to see, they move it to the shared space. Here, other teams can look at it and coordinate their own work with it. Once it's been checked, reviewed, and fully approved, it moves to published. That's the green light. It's now authorized for construction. And finally, it all goes into the archive, creating a permanent, unchangeable record of the project. This whole structure is designed to prevent that nightmare scenario of someone accidentally building from the wrong, unapproved design.
Okay, so we've talked about all these rules, all these new terms, these processes. You might be thinking, what's the big payoff? I mean, why go through all this trouble? Well, this is why it all matters. By creating that single source of truth and that super clear workflow, you are directly slashing the risk of mistakes and the huge cost of fixing them. You're making the whole process more efficient, not just for building the thing, but for running it for decades. What you're really doing is building this incredible treasure trove of structured data. People call it a digital twin that you can learn from for every future project. At the end of the day, ISO 19650 transforms project information from this huge liability into an incredibly valuable, reusable asset.
When you boil it all down, this standard isn't really just about software and servers. It's actually a framework for building human trust. It's simple, really. When everyone agrees to play by the same rules and speak the same language, you start to replace that chaos with the kind of mutual understanding you absolutely need for real collaboration to flourish.
It's a really powerful model for collaboration, right? Just built on clear communication and shared rules. And it leaves you with a pretty big question. I mean, if we can use this to coordinate something as ridiculously complex as a skyscraper, just imagine what other massive, complicated challenges we could solve if we just worked a little better together.